You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Who would have thought the key to signing Brad Marchand was simply Dairy Queen ice cream? But that's where we're at, almost a month away from free agency. It's Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. What's up, Rosie? How are you?
Your intros, I must have missed something there. Dairy Queen, Brad, what's the story?
You're not watching, are you? But Brad Marchand, I guess on the off day last week, the Florida Panthers, Wallen Raleigh, I believe, headed down to Dairy Queen. And Brad Marchand, on the following game, admitted that he loves the chocolate chip cookie dough Blizzard from DQ and vouched for DQ for life. So what I'm saying, if the Leafs really want to sign this guy, you set that up upon talking to Brad Marchand on July 1, right?
These are the depths we're going these days, eh? Oh, my goodness. I don't know. Marshy would be, I just don't know, man. I just keep thinking about what moves are they going to make? And it is a big question mark still. It's like exciting heading towards July 1 here.
Not really exciting for me. I'm saying don't spend any money and wait for Connor McDavid or one of those big ass free agents next summer. The more and more I look at this crop, I'm not very intrigued by any of the names. Like even Sam Bennett. Like, I think there's a chance, and hopefully they're smarter than this, that the Leafs just throw way too much money at Sam Bennett and expect this guy to be the Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers in Toronto. It just doesn't work that way. We've seen so many different examples of that. I don't expect anything different from Sam Bennett if he were to sign with the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, you wonder about that, right? Like he's a max 50-point man in the regular season. Like he is not a 100-point superstar. But what he does do is kind of deliver in the clutch times when that's what is exactly that's the problem that's plagued the Toronto Maple Leafs for so long. I mean, you can go to Four Nations face-off, you can go to his playoff production. Like what's he probably played about 100 games? I think he's got 70 points or something in the playoffs career-wise. I mean, that's pretty good numbers for playoff hockey, and he just continually produces, and doesn't have to be the number one guy when he comes here. Which has plagued people coming here and being like, all right, you are the one that's taking us to the promised land. But it just depends on a dollar figure, right? $10 million. I could easily see that, coming. All of a sudden he's like a 45-point guy and everyone's looking at this $10 million guy, and it's tougher to produce in Toronto. It's an interesting thing to say, but he is the guy that stands out as what would help this team possibly get over the hump as a player like him, no doubt.
Someone's going to blow their load. I just hope it's not the Toronto Maple Leafs, and maybe he goes back to Florida. If I'm Sam Bennett, seriously, I think about the repercussions of not returning to Florida. Can I be the same player? Can I have the same success? Do I have the same insulation? There's got to be so many different questions. And ultimately, the two names that keep coming to my mind for some reason, Bobby Holik when he signed with the New York Rangers and David Clarkson when he signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I would just be very, very careful how I tread here, Rosie. I really would.
Clarky. Yeah, it would, man. It's just such an anomaly. Like people are looking at Zach Hyman right now and like, what was his production when he was here? He was kind of, not 100% healthy and demanded $5 million or whatever. Everyone's like, you're crazy to do that. So they don't. And now looking back at his production when he leaves the market, he just pops off. And of course he's with a great team playing with some great players, but it's so standard bringing guys into Toronto. They don't really perform. Guys leave Toronto and they do perform. And that to me brings up, the fact of after the season when Marchand and Tkachuk and Paul Maurice are all talking about, what it's like to be in this pressure cooker market, kind of annoyed me that all the media members laughed and said, oh, they're trolling him. That's a classic troll job. Like, what a load of shit. That was genuine honesty from their perspective after the competition is over. And it made complete sense to me. I don't think they were blaming the media for anything like that, but they're just showcasing, man, it's tough in that market. And it is. I've been in the market. I understand what that feels like. Was I a superstar player who had all the pressure of the world on me? No, but I was in the room. I understood it day to day, and that feeling of weight on your shoulders all the time because you're playing in that massive market. I guess I didn't get a chance to talk about it after it happened, but that kind of pissed me off that they were just genuinely talking about how difficult it is. And people just completely poo-pooed that as blaming the media. There's no one to blame for it. It's just the fact, it's just the circumstances that exists. And why do you think all these players come here and can't perform? Why do you think all these players leave and can't perform? Why do you think they haven't won a cup since 1967? It is goddamn difficult in this market, much more so than other ones. period.
So much heat. That was a nice rant, man, for May 27th. Season's been done for 8 days, but you're fired up on this Tuesday.
Something came across my feed as I was watching. I'm like, that's such a load of shit. Like, unanimously, everyone jumps on the same train. Oh, yeah, that was a troll job. What a classic troll job. Classic mind games. Like, what are you talking about? That's the most genuine thing ever. They went to battle, would win by any means necessary. Once it's over, they genuinely say, God damn, I feel for those guys. It has got to be tough playing here. And then the media just goes off saying, that's mind games and a troll job. It's just so dumb. Just why can't the media just admit, yeah, it's really difficult to play here. It's not anyone's fault. You don't have to take ownership for it. It is what it is.
Normally I would agree with you, but it's the culprits for me. Matthew Tkachuk is the voice of reason. He knows what it's like to play in Toronto. He's played in Calgary and Florida. Paul Maurice is one of the best in the business at the lip service. Like, look at him yesterday. They lose in game 4, and I don't even know what the hell he was talking about. The guy's the most relaxed, chill guy in the planet. And they're probably going to win game 5 because of that. So that was my reasoning why hook, line, and sinker. I bought that because it was the culprits involved. Brad Marchand too, like 3 of the biggest trolls in league history. That's why I took it to heart.
I don't see Paul Maurice as being a troll. He's a thoughtful, introspective guy, and he's been the coach of this team, knows the market very well, and now is having massive success in a completely different market. And he gave his perspective on it, which made total sense to me, being a guy that's been on the media side of thing and the players side of thing. They were just, those guys are leaders, are veterans. They've won before. They have played in different markets, and they had a perspective on what it's like for these guys that came up, painfully short again. And it was completely honest. I just, for what reason are all 3 of them troll jobbing? Who does that troll, and what does that accomplish? That was complete honesty.
I don't know. There's a certain free agent, we're going to get to him, who, surprise, surprise, over the weekend, he'd be open to playing for the Florida Panthers. That's why it's a troll job. Hey, Mitch, come play for us. There's no garbage here. Come on, man. You're smarter than that.
What are you talking about? What they said at the end of the fucking series have anything to do with signing Mitch Marner? Like, how do you connect that?
Because everything's chill, everything's good here. You don't have to deal with that shit. It's indirectly.
He already knows that.
People.
Nothing they said at the end of the series has any bearing on Mitch Marner signing or him. Holy smokes, really? Wow, it is hard to play in Toronto. I didn't realize that. You guys think I should go play it? Okay, I'll come down now. Thank you for opening my eyes. Like, get fucking serious, man. That has nothing to do with Mitch Marner signing or not signing in Florida. Wake up is right.
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where you're giving the biggest trolls in the league the benefit of the doubt. Like, Matthew Tkachuk is the voice of reason for you, and he's going to tell you how the market of Toronto is. Like, come on. I agree with you to a sense. Like, I think it's Toronto being Toronto, and people are overreacting, but I do think there was a hint of a troll job there. That's it.
I think they went to battle against this team a few times. They gave them a good run, which they're not even used to, and said, Jesus, and they knew exactly after that collapse in game 7, what was coming down the barrel for those guys. They get to go back down to Florida, and they genuinely just said, man, pretty good team there. They haven't won yet. It's difficult. Maurice has perspective from both sides of things, and they just honestly said that, and the media takes off like trolling. I thought that was complete bullshit. Go back and watch the interviews. It's 100% genuine.
And I think that, to your point, I think the biggest issue in the market, at least for me, is like nobody was talking about the Leafs losing and crashing in game 5 and 7 after. It was minimal conversation on locker room cleanout day. It was more about that. It was more about the Florida Panthers, what they had to say. But the only rebuttal I would have to add is, why hasn't Paul Maurice come out and give credence to the Carolina Hurricanes for the way they've played in the conference final? You're telling me it's night and day between the Leafs and Carolina and the way they've handled the Panthers so far?
Yeah. They're a goal away from sweeping them. We went to game 7. What are you talking about?
I'm talking specifically game 5 and game 7. Like, if after game 5, it was like Paul Maurice was dishing out the compliments left and right, like it was a close game or something. No, they humiliated the Maple Leafs on home ice, mind you.
Yeah, they're different series, but I mean, again, the Maple Leafs, I said it when they were in the final, if they got by the Panthers, they would mop the floor with Carolina as well. It's the heaviest team in the world is the Florida Panthers. They got them to game 7 with 2 horrendous performances. It's not ideal. You blew a 2-game lead. Everyone knows what happened, but I mean, again, if that was the Florida Panthers, you think they would have, if that was the Carolina Hurricanes, I don't think they'd struggle as much with them, or the Washington Capitals. It's the best team in the world. I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. And I don't really think it's particularly close, even if I think it's going to be Edmonton, Florida, rematch of the finals last year. I don't think I would rather Edmonton win by a million miles, but I don't think anyone can stop that Florida Panthers team. And they tip their cap after saying, God damn, you Leafs have got a lot of things going. You're a lot better than you were a couple of years ago. Understand how much heat you're going to take for it. And it's a tough market to play in. Simple as that.
The good old handshake line, respect. We love that in this market. We get respect from the opponent. Yeah. We feel good about life. I love that. But man, the Florida Panthers are at a point here in the conference final where they're resting guys. Like Mikkola didn't play. AJ Greer's been a nice key sort of depth piece for them, and Sam Reinhart. And still, I think if you're Carolina, you're happy, but you played like your best game possible and you still only won 1-0, right? They scored 2 empty netters in that game, and it just shows you the power of the Florida Panthers. And the big story for me is the goaltending. Like Bobrovsky is so dialed in. And imagine a world where you're surrendering 1 goal per game. Like that sets your team up for success, I would say.
Yeah, they're so deep, man. Like Tkachuk's not even like, has he scored this playoff run?
Barely, dude. Barely. Like, I think he scored in the first game of the series or the second game, but he's been really quiet.
He hasn't been himself by any stretch, and normally that would just be the kiss of death for teams, but they're so deep and they have an identity that it honestly just reverberates through the whole team. And it doesn't matter if it's, Greer, Mikkola, or Sam Bennett or Marshall. It's just like you just absorb that, and like whoever falls back, someone fills their place. It's just an unbelievably, I don't know if it's because it's well designed or if it's just lucky with all the personalities and players coming together, or if it's Paul Maurice, the way he's coached. I don't know what it is, maybe a little bit of everything, but they are just like you say, you're missing this guy, that guy. Well, this guy steps up. Well, AJ fucking Greer. Like, what are you talking about? You put AJ Greer on the Leafs and he's a fucking muppet that everyone's saying whether you need to be scratched for Holmberg or something, you know what I mean? But he's down there and he's just like Mr. Stand up and step up to the plate and get the job done. Every single guy on that roster is just capable of doing it. It's weird. They have this identity that I think is unmatched in the NHL.
Oh, it's the amazing thing about Florida. Just every player knows their role and they play it to their best abilities. Like it's crazy. And I don't know if it's the coaching or just the composition of the roster. Everybody just seems to be slotted in the perfect position, and gets back to the point about Sam Bennett. Is like he better be careful with his decision. If he goes elsewhere, what kind of team is he going to have around him? Because he can't be your go-to guy. If you're signing Sam Bennett to be your star player, I think you're in for a rude awakening. Yeah. He's got to play the same type of role that he's playing right now in Florida. And it's just a really polarizing conversation. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Sam Bennett in the next couple weeks leading up to July 1, and rightfully so. But I think it's buyer beware in this scenario. And again, the examples of Holik and David Clarkson and guys like that, where it just, you get horny, you get fired up, but then you bring them in. It's just not the same player you are expecting. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. Michael, thank you so much for the Super Chat. Guys, if they'll miss the playoffs and lose a high first pick to Flyers because they decide to save the money for next year, do you agree? I will. And that comes into play too, as the 2 first rounders they dealt at the deadline, right?
Well, yeah, not having a first rounder till 29.
I think it's 28. I think they dealt it 26, 27. Yeah.
You got 25 to go by, 26 to go by, 27 to go by. That's a long time, man. And if you're not feeding your pipeline with other picks and guys developing properly and getting the right pieces in order, it's just, I'm not sure what they're going to do. You want to make up for Marner's production if you lose him to make sure you get into the playoffs, but you don't need to win the Atlantic again. You want to get in the playoffs, and you want to have a team that's better suited to play playoff hockey. You want some dogs there, and you're looking around going, well, where's my dogs? And Sam Bennett leaps off the page. If it's a difference between $8 and $10 million, do you come to Toronto for $8 million or for $10 million and get taxed out your ass and the cost of living and everything else, or stay where you're living by the beach with Tkachuk, with Maurice, with your cups, with, for $8 million at no tax, you're probably at the same dollar amount in your bank account at the end of the day. I just think it's going to be really hard to sway him off, unless they kind of move on from him and say, here's 6 or 7. And he's like, come on, you guys. I don't know what their situation is, but again, I think that it would be nice to go to a situation like Toronto where you don't need to be the dog. Like if they bring him in somewhere and say, okay, take us to the promised line. He's like, I'm a 50-point. That's my ceiling so far in my career. Yeah, he's sick in the playoffs and stuff, but he's far from the best player on the team. He just produces like crazy. And I think that would be a similar situation for him in Toronto. That's why I think they're looking at him.
Maybe it's my Leafs bias, but I can't stand when reports come out that are just ridiculous. And maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. I don't know if you saw it over the weekend that I forget who put it out, but they suggested one team is willing and able and ready to spend at least $10 million per season on Sam Bennett. Like, let's get serious. It's the least biased because it's the Maple Leafs and people are going to bid them up, and people know the Maple Leafs are going to be involved in that conversation. Like, that's the only logical outcome I come to that report coming out there. It's not like something's coming out about Nikolai Ehlers wanting $15 million per season,
Yeah, true. I don't know. You get focused on something, but he's the hot ticket right now. He's scoring like crazy. He's on the best team in the world. 3 cup final in a row.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. I guess why he's on everyone's tongue, but we'll see if that dies down as we actually, kind of the cup gets given away. They start to chip in towards July 1. We'll see what prospects really come up for individual signings. And yeah, there's going to be, again, with Leafs Nation, there's going to be a tale of two sides of let's go and replace Mitch right now and let's hold off, and who cares if we miss the playoffs or something. Let's wait for the big crop of UFAs here in 2026. That's kind of a tough prospect when you think of all the hype and the buildup towards getting Berube and Tree Living and getting this team to where they are, and Stolars and everything else that's going well. It's kind of tough to say, yeah, let's take a back seat here this year. It's going to be an interesting summer.
Speaking of interesting, one of our favorites coming up on today's podcast from TSN, Mark Masters, is going to drop by in about 15 minutes. If you vividly remember, I think this time last year we had him on, and he had some really intricate wallpaper behind him. I wonder what the setting will look like today for Mark Masters.
Ooh, pretty wallpaper. I like it. Yeah, he's the guy he was around when I was around. Obviously, he's got a lot more road under him now and experience like crazy, but he's probably the closest guy to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the media that you could find, and knows them inside and out, does them, covers them absolutely daily. So it'll be good to pick his brain and see if he can shed any light on some things that we're missing around here with the old Maple Leafs.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. We had a couple super chats I wanted to get to. Maxentius Decimus in support of sick kids has to be the most boring conference finals ever. It's funny you bring that up. I was watching that game last night, dude. It was painful to get through game 4 between Carolina and Florida, but I did. And the Canes got the win, and their first win, I think they were 0 for 15, dude, before they won a conference final game. Congrats to them.
Isn't that wild? I saw some people picking apart, the divisions and the way it's set up. And if you look at the map and like, how the hell are these the divisions, and some are weak and some are strong? And why do you think Carolina gets to the conference final every year just to get absolutely smoked because they're lopsided? Some conversations to have about that. They were already being had before the playoffs. Gary Bettman himself had to respond to them saying they're not changing the 1 to 8 seed. I guess that doesn't mean you can't mix up the divisions a little bit and try to make them, a little bit more geographically fixed up. I think they did that in a lot of reasons to, the Snowbirds will help out down in Florida and Tampa, blah, blah, blah. But since their success in the last decade, I don't think you necessarily need that. I don't know, a conversation for another day, I'm sure, but it is kind of eerie that they get to the conference finals every year like clockwork and clearly aren't up to snuff.
It's crazy, man. 6 straight years. Like, I think we're Carolina specifically, they get to a conference finals, but I wanted to get to the point of like 6 straight years where it's going to be Florida, Tampa, and the Florida Panthers. Like, isn't that crazy to think about?
6 years in a row that
Florida's getting to the final. Yeah,
it's wild, man. They've put together big programs, which is great for the game and the league. I remember Tampa starting out, and that was a long time ago now. I guess it's going back a ways, but like Phil Esposito was running things, and they had all these gimmicks. They put a girl in net to try to say first girl in the NHL. I think she played a period or two.
Manon Rhéaume.
Exhibition. Manon Rhéaume. Yeah, her poster was everywhere. It was a good marketing stunt. and then just trying to get people in there. And I was drafted by them in 2003 and spent a fair bit of time in Tampa. And you look at it now, the success they've had. They won their cup in 2004, which was unbelievable for them, really put them on the map. And I think it started to take them off as far as getting their feet off the ground and getting a lot of fan base and fanfare around them. But now you look and it's just like, holy shit, you go to a game down there. Same with Florida, and Florida's barn is out in the bayou. Like it's so far away. It's a joke. Tampa's is at least right on Channel Side Drive downtown. Lots of stuff to do before and after the game. So it makes sense, but they're even making it work in Florida. And I mean, success on the ice does a lot of things for your organization. And both of those units are in a pretty awesome spot right now.
Yeah, admittedly, one of my favorite games or places to watch a game right now is Tampa. I love the venue. They're a fun team to watch. I like watching them play Toronto because the Leafs always seem to beat them, which is always great. John Cooper's a great dude, great to us. He's been on with us. But I love the feeling. Like even in Florida, we were talking about it earlier with Sam Bennett. Like they have a practice facility right in Fort Lauderdale where they take their golf carts and they wheel down and they go in their flip-flops. Like just imagine that, right?
That's why you wonder why Sam Bennett would choose to leave. Even like I get more money. You only have so much time. You don't know what your value is going to be. I don't think Sam Bennett ever imagined being a $10 million player in this league.
I know.
So you could look at that. But I mean, when you crunch the numbers and the tax and the cost of living and lifestyle and everything else and winning and pressure, and I mean, it's be pretty hard to leave Florida Panthers right now,
man. And of course, the irony of Sam Bennett, if you recall early on in his career, before he got drafted at the combine, he couldn't do a pull-up, or it was either a pull-up or bench press. He couldn't do it. And now we're talking about this guy being one of the grittiest players in the league, right? Like that's cool. Good for him.
That reminds me of doing like pull-ups at camp or whatever. And one of the trainers was in St. Louis back in the day or whatever. And he's like, I always laugh at this because I remember Brett Hull the year after, what was his ceiling? Like 74 or something unbelievably crazy amount of goals in a season.
I think it was, 74, 76 rings a bell, maybe. Yeah.
Something like that. And he jumps onto the pull-up bar and he goes, and does one and then walks away. And then they're like, whoa, Brett, you're supposed to do max pull-ups. And he goes, I went like this 76 times last year. I don't have to do it in the fucking gym.
That's awesome.
I think that just summed that guy up. But I don't know if Sam Bennett was pulling one of those or he's just not a puller. But no. He's a long way removed from that storyline nowadays, isn't he?
Oh man, it just shows you there's different ways to be gritty and strong. Like, and obviously he's worked on himself too. And you can't really judge a book by its cover when they're 17 or 18 years old. But it's such a polarizing story for me where Sam Bennett has come from. Like, you know, a lot is made about the Matthew Tkachuk trade, but how about Florida getting Sam Bennett from Calgary, right? And that whole operation. It's just a series of really, really strong moves that put the Panthers in a really, really good spot. Not for now and not just now, but down the road too, man. Like, I don't see them going away anytime soon either.
I know. And I mean, back to my original statement, like, is it easy to go there and perform and just become something and chip away? And there's no like craziness when you start to do well. It's just becomes normal. Where in Toronto, you start to you start to roll a little bit and there's all these storylines all on 24/7. It's just bomb. And the same players come through Toronto and leave and go and come. And it's just harder. Their production's always down in Toronto. Like, I just don't understand how anyone could argue that it's difficult to play in Toronto. It's harder to perform. It's tough to get the most out of a team and players, hence the record they have in the last 55 years. And hence why, players come there and underperform and sometimes players leave and then flourish. It's simply because it is the biggest market where fans just care so bloody much. That turns into pressure.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. So I guess Craig Berube did an interview with Nasty Knuckles, Riley Cote, and Derek Settlemeyer, a.k.a. Nasty. And they have a great relationship with him. So he hit in a lot of key talking points that anybody, including us, would love to ask him about. But he talked about Matthews and Marner and the pressure. And I think the big thing that stuck out for me in the podcast interview, go and check it out, was this notion that it's a country club atmosphere. He rejected the notion really, really quickly. And I think this is why they brought in Craig Berube to begin with. This set a tone for the entire franchise. And I think he's done that. Like, I know it still stings. They lose in Game 7 to the Florida Panthers, who could go off to another Stanley Cup here. But I think he's instilled a couple of significant things with this team already.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know who's called it a country club, or if people have, or if he's just saying people would assume it's a country club. I don't know, just because there's so many perks of playing there and they have so much money. But I mean, it's not there's not a lot of bottom feeder teams in the NHL. Everyone has the same amenities, or riding on the jets and staying at the Four Seasons. And like, I mean, you don't, just because the Leafs are worth $3 billion doesn't mean they necessarily have all this stuff that other teams don't. I mean, you can get a hyperbaric chamber in your training room, but you only need one of those. Like, it doesn't really take anything crazy. They have endless amenities and it's all first class, but it's not like anything that crazy that would make them like lazy and not really have to try and get too comfortable. So I agree with Chief there for sure. Those guys are working as hard as anybody else, and in my mind, they have to work so much mentally as well to try to stay in a good place to perform, where, like you said, down south, they're in their flip-flops riding golf carts. Who gives a shit? Let's go play volleyball on the beach after practice. No one says shit. These guys hit the golf course on a Wednesday and there's 3 scathing articles written in 4 different publications. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I just think he's trying to touch on that. Those guys work hard and they're doing their best, and there's nothing different about that place that would make it seem like a country club.
For example, I was at a bar over the weekend. There was a Maple Leaf there, and the amount of people that came up or were discussing really close to the Leaf, that a Leaf is at the bar, I'm like, who cares? And then, for example, I was in Florida in February. I was at a different bar in Fort Lauderdale, and there was a Panther there, and nobody had a clue who this guy was. I did, because I watch hockey and cover it on a daily basis, but it just shows you night and day the differences, man. Like, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Like, I always wonder, if you're a Leaf and you go out in public, the little things about even holding a drink, like holding a drink, going out with a couple pops with your friend, like even holding a drink in a picture, would I want to do that? Probably not.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember going out, and it's risky, right? Especially if you're going with Dion or Kessel or someone that's of higher profile, and it's risky. There's people snapping pictures of you all the time, and that was back when some people still had flip phones, in 2011 or 12. Nowadays, it's just, you're going to be photographed and videoed no matter what you're doing, even if you're just having dinner and having a glass of wine. Like, it's just not the same in Florida. And I remember being in a bar with like Luke Shen, and we started off kind of in the corner, just having a beer and catching up, having a bullshit. And by the end, like, I went to the bathroom and I came back, and like the corner was just pushed up against the wall. And it was mostly guys trying to bullshit and say hi and talk about their dad or some bullshit. But it's a completely different animal, man. That just can't be lost in the shuffle when it comes to talking about this team. And it kind of annoys me when the media brush that off. That's nonsense. It's like, why would that be nonsense? You go fucking play there and see how much different it is than Florida. It's not an excuse. You still need dogs to come in and perform. That's something that you got to get over. There's nothing about it that's going to change, and there's nobody to blame. But you'd be out of your mind to say that that's not a factor.
Pressure's not too big for the boys at Edmonton. I could tell you that, Rosie. I know it's a different market, but still pretty chaotic over in Edmonton. But I think the biggest thing I gathered from the Shanahan news, and he's now done, the era now officially over, but that Craig Berube will have more power or say in the operation than a typical head coach. We talked about this last week, like the Pat Quinn era, where he'd be GM and coach. But it sounds like Berube's going to have some intel here and now be able to sort of pinpoint and work with Tree Living a bit closer. Like, this guy went for dinner with Pelley last week. How many times do you see that? Like, a coach and like the prez, the owner, like everything, dude.
I don't think that's weird. Like, they work for the same company. Why they can't get dinner? They got to bullshit and be on the same page. I think you'd be out of your friggin' mind to run an organization that big and not have a good, close working relationship with your employees. I don't know what that means exactly for Craig Berube to have a bigger like, what does that mean? Does that mean at July 1 he's going to be in the room giving his piece, and he's going to have a percentage of pull or input? Possibly. Did that mean before that they would make deals and not even mention it to Berube or run it by him or get his thoughts? I can imagine there are organizations ran like that. You coach the team that I put in the room. Until they come in the room, you have nothing to do with it. I think some people think that's cleaner and easier and there's more defined roles. Fine. It sounds like with Shanahan out and not having a president at all, they're going to kind of have a little bit more of a collaboration, which it's not like Berube is going to come upstairs and like slam the brakes on a deal, but I think he's going to have some input and he's going to be involved in the process a little bit more, which I don't know, if you want everyone on the same page and you want to streamline things and get collaboration going, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And it's crazy how things come back out of time. But like even the whole, like, I don't know if you saw over the weekend, but the whole like Marc-Andre Fleury deal that was nixed that came back to fruition over the weekend. People were talking about that. Like, let's just let that sit in the past. You know, I don't even want to think about Brandon Hagel in a Maple Leafs jersey. You know,
never can anyone in Leafs Nation leave things in the past, man. There's too many good stories and what ifs, and everyone's hindsight is 2020.
Good point. The following interview is brought to you by our good friends over at Greta Bar YYZ, the ultimate hangout spot in Toronto. Whether you're catching the big game, diving into some classic arcade action, or grabbing some unreal street food, Greta Bar's got you covered. Planning a team building event or a corporate event, Greta Bar is the perfect place to bring the crew together for good vibes and great memories. For more info, head on over to gretabar.com. That's gretabar.com, 590 King Street West. Greta Bar. Let the games begin. As you bring in the one and only from TSN, it is Mark Masters. What's going on, Masters? How are you, bud?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, our pleasure. So what do you do? I know you do a bunch of tennis stuff in the summer, but have you just been chilling for the last week or so?
I've just been, kind of wandering around in a stupor, trying to figure out what's next. It's kind of weird, right? Like every day you're like, what is the Leafs schedule? Because that's your schedule. And then all of a sudden it's just over. Kind of waiting on this Trey Living availability. So don't want to make any plans, right? You know, you're trying to do stuff that you've put off for a while, like get into the dentist and get a haircut and all this stuff. But waiting for this Trey Living avail, which I'm sure will come at some point. But yeah, I've done some tennis. I checked in with some of the Canadian players ahead of the French Open. And I like to get into the prospects as well, draft prospects. I caught up with Ben Danford yesterday, spoke to Easton Cowan before the Memorial Cup. So I like to try and check in on that. But yeah, it's a weird that the first couple weeks after the Leaf season ends is always kind of strange.
Always kind of depressing too, isn't it? Well, Keith Pelley gave us, a media scrum, press conference, whatever you want to call it. What was your take after listening to that? Did anything stand out to you?
Nothing too much. I think he said a lot of what you would imagine he would say. I think, the decision to move on from Brendan Shanahan, people saw that coming considering how everything's played out. He's talking about how he can't, evaluate the previous years before he got here, which is something Craig Berube has also said. And I've just been kind of sitting on that and thinking about that and wondering if maybe they should, if they need to do a bit of a deeper dive into what's gone wrong or why this team hasn't lived up to its potential over these years, if that should be a bigger priority for the organization moving forward here. But just in general, I thought, he said what you would expect him to say. He reiterated a lot of things. Good is not good enough. Certainly interesting to hear him talk about, repairing the relationship with fans and the media. That certainly kind of stuck out a bit. So I don't think there was like a headline kind of thing, and that's probably a good thing coming out of that news conference and availability. And I was struck, like you guys were talking about, that, he had clearly was on his mind. He had just spoken with Craig Berube, had dinner with him, and he spoke about how Berube changed the culture. So that was interesting. So clearly they like a lot of what's kind of where things are going here with Berube, and he mentioned the strides that have been taken this season. So clearly he feels like things seem to be moving in the right direction.
Yeah, the headliner for me, Masters, was Pelley versus the water bottle. That's all I could focus on, that the entirety of that press conference. But Craig Berube is the one that intrigues me. Pelley called him an incredible asset. Do we have an understanding of what this means? Because we think Berube's going to have a bigger role now, right?
I just think that, clearly he made an impression on Pelley. It's funny how it kind of worked, right? Trey Living was in Calgary at his daughter's graduation. Berube had just had dinner with him. So it did feel like that was front and center for Pelley, and clearly he made an impression on him. Berube did on Pelley. So, clearly he thinks that's, and then I asked him about kind of that afterwards, the culture, because he said, we did the scrum after the news conference. I said, the culture, he said, the culture is better. What are you seeing? And he pointed out that, the Argos Grey Cup, he was there and he just observed them. And then afterwards he talked to Ryan Dinwiddie, the Argos coach, and said, you guys are going to win, by a couple of touchdowns based on what I just saw. I didn't quite go into the details of it, but clearly he thought there was something positive happening there. And he feels like Berube is bringing, or at least building something similar with the Leafs. It's a hard thing to define, obviously. So that was interesting. And now Trey Living, apparently, like they were going to have dinner on Sunday night, is what Pelley indicated. So we'll see. And I asked him about Trey Living after, like, what gives you confidence in him? And he said, well, you could answer that as well as I could, which is the defense is better, the goaltending is better. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Everyone's going to have, with Shanahan leaving and not being replaced, at least in the immediacy, everyone's going to have a bigger voice right now. It feels like.
Mm-hmm. You'd mentioned how he spoke of changing the relationship with the fans and the media. You're kind of the number one guy around the Leafs in the media. You've been around for a long time. What do you think that means? What do you think would change or could change or should change with their relationship to fans and media?
I think something that could change is, I feel it's very sanitized, the relationship right now. Like, it's very scrums, which, I'm a TV reporter, so that's a lot of my stuff is scrums, but you like to talk to guys that are in the room, even off camera, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about hockey. It's just nice to get to know guys a bit more on a personal level. And I think it makes it a lot easier and humanizes everything. So it doesn't look like I'm just shoving a mic in someone's face. And when something has gone wrong, or even something has gone right, and saying, explain this. I think coming out of the pandemic, it's changed a little bit. It's been a bit more. When I first started many years ago, I just remember we'd go into the dressing room and there'd be a lot of guys there, right? Like it would open up a little earlier, and we would have a chance to, even if you were just talking and shooting the breeze with somebody, there would be opportunities for that. Whereas now it's like, okay, these guys are coming to the back wall and we're going to talk to them. So I just think it's more of that, right? Like I find like the room it opens a little later, and there are some guys, and Tavares is always out working late, it feels like, and there are guys that are there, but sometimes guys have left the room, and if they're requested, of course they'll come back. But sometimes, I don't know, if there's a way to generate more opportunities to have, just to humanize the relationship a bit more, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'll pull both you guys. Rosie, we'll start with you. Do you think the Leafs protect their players too much? Like, I know it's the market. I know we talk about this and the big story from Game 7. We talked about it to start the podcast with Maurice and company, what they had to say. But from your vantage point, the former Maple Leaf, and you've lived it, Rosie, what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to say, because I understand why they want, to be the way they are at times. You say one thing and everyone goes off, ourselves included, right? There's a hot sound bite or some guy goes off the cuff with some remark and, oh my God. And they've learned from that. They're like, that usually hurts us. So we're going to keep our cards close to our vest and, not give anyone the opportunity to spin some narrative that's probably not going to be in our favor. That being said, there are times where I feel like it goes too far and it bites them in the ass, and they why not let this player speak freely? And you talk to people behind the scenes and stuff. It's like, man, why wouldn't you just be able to say that out loud? It would do such wonders for everybody who pays attention to this club. That's the stuff they want to hear, and they're never able to. So I think it goes both ways, but they're probably learning with the way social media and Twitter and everything has popped off so heavily in the last decade. I imagine that it's a learning process.
Yeah, it's tough. You can see both sides of that, right? It can be tricky. I just find that there's a lot of great stories, right? Like, and there's a lot of volume too, right? But this is a team that, I know we focus a lot on the playoffs because obviously it's the most important time of year, but the majority of the season and the coverage is during the regular season. And the team has won a lot of games in the regular season over the years. There's been a lot of positive stories, and I think there's an opportunity to tell them more and just not have it be as adversarial as it sometimes feels like it is. And I see it both ways. Like, they do a lot, like, especially the top guys, they have a lot of requests beyond just what they might be requested to do from the general media on a given day. So you can certainly understand, like, that brings some of the pressure to that. Like, they only have so many hours of the day. And so you understand that, but you're just, I think it gets back to just trying to find ways to, I guess, humanize everybody, humanize the relationship, and tell some of the stories that are positive stories, rather than just, it feels like sometimes just trying to get through the availabilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I'm pretty surprised to hear from you, actually, that I remember coming off, maybe I'd stay late because I wasn't playing, getting bag skated or something, but I'd come off the ice and there'd be cameras and media people sitting around, and one guy's giving an interview and someone else comes and sits beside a guy, and you have a little BS and what's happening here or there. And it's off the record. It seems personal. The people, the relationship is just better actually in the room. So to hear that probably COVID, they just kind of kept with those parameters of just, it seems very impersonal now by the way you say it. And again, I think that they do that on purpose to try to protect their guys. But I just think if you disconnect too far from the media and the fan base, it's going to be easy for them to turn on you and think of you as almost the bad guy at times, which I don't think serves anybody.
Yeah, I agree. It's like everyone's trying to do their job, right? And I think that if you talk more, you understand each other better. And I don't want to say that doesn't happen. Like there are guys that are in the room, like Chris Tanev is always just sitting there. I remember early on, James Van Riemsdyk was always just be sitting there. Everyone has their own routines, right? And people have on certain days things to do. But I'd love to just, the goalies are always kind of just there. So like those are the guys like that you can that you tend to have the longest or the most chats with, at least for me. But yeah, it just feels like a lot of stuff is happening at just the back of the wall, like, the main scrums. And if you can get just a bit more outside of the scrum format, I think that would serve everyone well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. The thing that resonated with me from what you said is that it always seems like you just try to get through the media availability, and it shouldn't be that way sometimes. And I'm curious to see how it looks moving forward. We think there's going to be a huge difference, and that's Mitch Marner. What's your view on Marner's future here with this team, and what's it been like covering him?
It's been amazing covering him. What a story, hometown guy coming in, and there's a guy that it just felt very light, like early years around him, and just everything was fun. And I remember Tavares came in and just joking about how he didn't know whether he wanted to punch him in the face or just laugh at him because he's just got that exuberance to him, right? And there was just a lot of good stories, like a lot of fun stories. And unfortunately, as he's gotten older and the pressure is built in the market, that those have kind of been less or fewer. But yeah, I mean, it's been incredible to cover one of the greatest careers in Leafs, history in terms of what he's done and some of the records he set and rising up the record books. And I find him to have a great personality too. I know sometimes it doesn't necessarily come off that way, but I find that when, he's really feeling good and in a good mood, he can be a really engaging guy to talk to. And then, yeah, just being in the scrums around him, the final couple after Game 7 on locker cleanout day, it sure felt like it was the end. That's just how it felt. And certainly that's been the reporting from our insiders, is that it feels like he's going to go to market. So in a way, it feels a little sad that it would end this way, kind of on a down note, considering how much he's brought to the organization over the years. And you can sense how much he wants this to work. Sometimes maybe he's wanted it too much to work. But yeah, it does feel like we're coming to the end, and it's a little bittersweet, I would say.
Yeah, by all accounts, very possibly the end of an era in a lot of ways. From your perspective, being around the team every single day, what do you think it is or it was that has them just not over that hump? What do you think they're missing?
Well, it feels very similar every year, right?
Yeah.
That's why I was saying it would be great. I think it's important. Like I asked Berube during the playoffs, like, have you looked at what happened in the playoffs with the Leafs in this era? And he said, no, I'm not looking at that. I don't think it would help me. I don't think it would help them. But it does feel like it's the same thing, which is the offense dries up. The top guys can't break through and the depth isn't there. It feels like they've had 5 straight Game 7s with 1 goal scored, right? And then they had the Game 5 in the bubble where they were shut out. Like, it just feels like they get to the end of these series and it's really hard to generate offense. And whether that's a mental block for the top guys at that moment, or it's just, they've run into quality opponents, which they certainly have. But it feels like it's been the same thing over and over again. Like, it feels like you watch the same movie and the ending. And when they lost Game 5 at home and it did not go well, you're kind of thinking, well, they'll win Game 6 and then lose Game 7. And it's just like, it's the more things change, the more they stay the same, because it's a better defense and the goaltending. And I guess you could point to the goaltending and say Bob was better. Sergei Bobrovsky was better down the stretch. And it does feel like in the series they've lost, the other team's goalie's been able to make that one more save. and they haven't been able to get that one more goal. So it's pretty incredible when you think about it, right? Like that they've had all these series deciding games, that they've been good enough to get to that moment, and they just can't do it. And again, it's been the same issues. So I'll be intrigued to hear what Trey Living's takeaway on that is when we get to him eventually.
Yeah, you guys can make a top 10 over at TSN of just disappointing losses for the Maple. Like it's actually wild. And obviously we're very focused on the Maple Leafs, and I'm sure other teams have losses like this, but nothing, it pales in comparison to what the Maple Leafs deal with on a yearly basis. Want to leave you with this. You obviously do a great job. You know, who's your favorite interview on this team right now?
I think Matthew Knies right now has emerged.
Pretty good player, eh?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like it's sometimes it's obviously it can be easier to speak your mind when the game supports it, or if you're lower down the lineup. Sometimes, like Ryan Reeves is amazing. I love talking to Ryan Reeves about pretty much any topic. But for me, Matthew Knies this season really found his voice as his role in the team increased, as his play elevated. I find him just to be. He'll think about the question. He'll give you an answer to the question. He's not afraid of saying something. He's not afraid of, talking, going back to you about stuff. He's not afraid to be self-critical. So I was really impressed with him. I think he's an interesting guy. And I think he's probably right at the top of the guys I like to talk to right now in that dressing room.
Yeah, and it sounds like a big priority right now for the Maple Leafs is getting Knies done before the draft. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. Mark, excellent job. Great coverage all season long, man. You're the best. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate being on with you.
Yeah.
Take care. Mark Masters from TSN. And yeah, to piggyback off that, that's the latest I heard over the weekend. The two sides re-engaging, not a surprise, I guess with Tree Living coming back to town. Like that's got to be, it would be interesting to know, like, priority number one, what is it? Talking to Mitch Marner, or is it Matthew Knies and getting that contract done?
Well, they've already talked to Mitch Marner many times and nothing's come to fruition. So I think they're kind of.
Is there a world, Rosie, like, be honest, is there a world that could prepare you for Mitch Marner coming back to the Maple Leafs? Like, can you even get to that level?
I just don't think it works that way. There's been too much has been said. I mean, Mark, touched on it. The fact that at locker cleanout day, it very much felt like goodbye. Speaking of his time here in a past tense, I don't see a world. I don't see a world where he can. I mean, to finish the interview there, we talked about how many times we've come up short and how much this is an offensively built team. Like, this team is built with like a $55 million power play or something. Like, the last problem you should have is drying up offensively. You would think that, you're too offensively minded. You're trying to win 6-5 every night. It doesn't work that way. And that would be your problem, but it's not. It's like we can't build this team any heavier on offensive minded players, yet we're going dry on offense when it's games 6 and 7 and that type of thing. So you have to change it. In my mind, I've said what I think. His contract's up, so it's the guy he's going to point the finger at. He's also kind of a guy that tends to shy away when it gets to those heavy moments in hockey games and in hockey series. So I don't see a world where he comes back. Touching on Matthew Knies, there's people who are like hockey minds in the media and stuff going, I really think he's going to get offer sheeted. They could lose him. And it's like, you don't even know that you can't even attempt. Like, no one can offer sheet him today. You can't offer sheet him till July 1. And there, with the way everyone in the world, the Leafs and the fans and everyone else values Matthew Knies, do you think they're going to risk letting him get to July 1? I just don't see it. And he's young. He's on his first contract post entry level. And I don't think he is going to hold their nose to the grindstone and wait out until July 1 and maybe get some opportunity to get some offer sheets going and stuff. I don't think he's going to do that. He wants to be here. He wants to win. He's ready. He's young. He's going to make his money. I just do not see a world where that happens.
Again, prime example of people utilizing the Leafs to their benefit. Troll job, dude. Why is this the only RFA that's spoken about in the light of signing an offer sheet? Why don't we talk about Evan Bouchard? The guy's playing like Bobby Orr, second straight year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Why doesn't somebody throw $14 million at him, Rosie? Why don't we start that narrative? Let's do it.
Because it's the biggest market in the world, and there's so many people that care.
Like for months, we've been on this Knies thing since November. He is not signing an offer sheet. He's going to sign a contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think that reinstilled the fact when he came out on media day after the season was done and pretty much intimated Toronto's where I want to be. We've been saying that concretely for months, but people want to create this false bullshit because it's the Maple Leafs. It drives me insane, man. It's nuts.
Again, it's how do you think the players feel? They can't fricking hiccup in an interview without there being all these stories and talk about it, right? Why do they protect their players? Why do they give you next to nothing? Why are their interviews so frigging boring? Because there's so many eyeballs, so many people that want to pick them apart, so many people that want to turn something into nothing, whether they're haters of the Leafs or fans of the Leafs or whatever it is. It's just so frigging massive. And you're feeling that just being a guy doing a show on the Leafs because everyone else in the world is looking at them in a different light. It is what it is. It's the beast that is the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey market.
You're either built for Toronto or you're not. I mean, plain and simple. For example, I think John Tavares is built for the market. He came over. He's delivered. I know there's been a lot of struggles and disappointments, but he still does his thing on the ice. William Nylander, same conversation. So, you can make that case for a variety of different players. I just think it's a rare market where it's like it's not for everybody. And that's why I think guys don't want to play here. Ryan O'Reilly and others. Like I understand it. I truly get it. But it's also a market, people relish that opportunity,
Yeah, again, everyone says it when they sign here, like it is difficult to play here, but if you win here, it would be like nothing else. It would be so much different than being on the Florida Panthers and winning a Stanley Cup. It would be this monumental deal that happens that is like life-changing, life-altering. People be crying at your feet, bringing their grandfather in front of you just to say they touched. Like, it's freaking crazy. That's why Mitch Marner said we're like gods here. I know, again, and that kind of pissed me off because you shouldn't say it. It's kind of like when the Beatles said we're bigger than Jesus, and it's the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
But he just meant we're treated that way. People look at us that way. That's how big the market is. That's how important this team is to people.
Who says that, though, man?
Yeah, it's a dumb thing to say. And unfortunately, the one time he goes off script, he says something so stupid.
Like, so stupid.
And it sucks to me because I'm like, no, now they're never going to say anything interesting because that got thrown back in his face so heavily. But that's what he's meaning. Like, if you win a cup there, people would literally just want to like touch your hand. Like, it's crazy. And it's a little bit too much to me. But that market, man, it means so. It's generational. It is embedded in your family. It is the best thing I compare it to. It would be like certain football teams in Europe and how insane they get. I mean, they literally have religion embedded into their teams, which is just insanity. So I think that's the difference. It's difficult to come here. You got to be a player that can handle that type of thing. But the reason people do come and give it a shot is because of what the payout would be if you were actually able to get it done.
And ultimately, when we have this ongoing conversation about media being too hard and heavy on the Maple Leafs, I look to soccer overseas and how difficult it is to play there. And some guys can handle it, some can't. What I got out of this, Brad Marchand, if he wants to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, effectively, if he wins a cup in Toronto, he could own a Dairy Queen franchise. Not only will he have Dairy Queen for life, but he'll be making money off it too. So
he could do whatever he wants if he wins a cup. And it'd be funny if it took someone like that, who's always been a thorn on their side, to help get him over the hump. He might be one of those, I don't know, man. I think there's a layer of, a little bit of an FU to Boston too, for him to go to Toronto and maybe have success against them when they're struggling. You wonder. We got to go into their cap space, and people might get mad that we're talking about Florida all the time. Well, they come up against Florida and they're the template and everything else. But and there's also a whole bunch of potential free agents that are going to be coming off there that this team in Toronto could absolutely use. You don't think a Bennett or a Marchand or an Ekblad would be perfect pieces for this? So be fun to crunch their cap a little bit. How much of this team, like, why would you want to break up the Florida Panthers in any way, shape, or form? You wouldn't, but the salary cap is probably going to do that for you in some ways. So it'll be fun to break that down over the upcoming weeks.
Just as a side, Devlin Foyston, I did not miss your super chat. If you can repost it, I don't see it in my chat for some reason, but I think it was something about Mitch Marner. If you can just copy and paste it, and I'll read it here in the chat. But I think it was something to the effect of Mitch Marner. the story coming out that Vegas and Florida intrigue him. Like, Marner has a chance to be the most hated athlete in the history of Toronto sports, I think. Like, he'd be side and side with Vince Carter, I do believe, if he chose to go to, like, where's the one spot if Marner went to, you would lose your shit more than you already have?
Good question, man. I mean, anyone in the division, it just depends on what the situation
It's Florida. The answer is Florida right now. It's Florida. If he goes to Florida and gives up on the dream and tries to Kevin Durant this thing, it's Florida.
is. Yeah, I hear you. True. And it depends on what he takes. Like, I always thought that what Mitch Marner could do to save face and be looked upon a lot softer, not that he's done anything wrong or anything, but just certain things have rubbed people the wrong way. And if he leaves, he blocks the Rantanen deal just to stay, which is his right. And if he walks for nothing, what about sign and trade? I don't think anyone's talking about. What about sign and trade for a deal that makes sense? Obviously, you'd have to go down the pipeline and kind of have your ducks in a row already, but give him that 8th year at, someone wants him at $13 million. There's another year on your 8th year. Like, you're looking at 30, what would you be, like 35 years old or 36 years old? Another year at $13 million that's going to matter. And 8 years is going to go by quicker than you think. Sign and trade the guy, then we get something in return. And I think it would soften the stance a lot of people in Toronto who are not thrilled with the way this whole Mitch Marner thing has gone down this past year.
Boston would be involved in that conversation for me as well. In support of Sick Kids, this is Devlin's Super Chat. Much love from Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. Have you seen the reports of Mitch Marner thinking about going to Florida? I think it's funny. I said it last week. Marner to Panthers, July 1st. I would have some things to say if that were to transpire, rest assured.
I also wonder, where does that information come from? Do you think him or his agent has whispered to anyone in the media, I'm thinking about going to Florida? And I think it's complete bullshit. I think people just look and say, yeah, it could make sense for them to do that. Let's throw it out there. I don't put a lot of stock into it. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. Not saying it doesn't even make sense. But a rumor from who? If it's not from Mitch or his agent, I think it means nothing.
Those are the only two people, knowing the whole Marner story, that would release information.
Those are the only two people who have any information. Who else would have an information going, I'm hearing a report? Who would it come from? From what? If it's not from Mitch or his agent, who the fuck does it come from? What are you talking about? Just making shit up.
Two together, who it is?
Who? Huh?
Who's been an engaging force in Marner's life and career?
Oh, his daddy. Dada.
Dude, to me, it's just way too coincidental that a day after the season's done, all this shit comes out, and Marner, like,
I don't think his dad wants him to leave. Like, his dad has got
we don't know.
Memorabilia business or some bullshit. Like, it benefits Mitch. It benefits him greatly having Mitch in Toronto. I just, whatever, man.
But you're right. There's a lot of moving parts. People are throwing junk out there. Who knows? This could all be a leverage play behind the scenes. And Mitch Marner wants to be a Leaf, and he wants to negotiate through the media. That's why there's so many moving parts to it.
It'll be interesting. I think it's going to be pretty clear and easy. He's going to go to a team for $13 million, and he's going to try to take them. Maybe he goes to Chicago, plays with Bedard, tries to get them into the playoffs a lot sooner than they would otherwise, and can get them back to their glory years. And that's the story. And he likes Chicago, and here we go. And that's the end of the story. Not earth-shattering news. I don't think there's this big conspiracy behind it. But we're going to see what happens. Maybe it plays out differently than expected.
My money's on Vegas. They've got to be pissed off about the season they just had. They lost in round 2 to the Edmonton Oilers, and they're just that team that just doesn't mess around. I think they're going to cut bait with somebody, and they're going to be like, hey, Mitchie, come in here, and let's win a Stanley Cup together. And it is what it is. It's time now for the Crispy Hot Take of the Day, presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 Portable Glass Air Fryer.
Meet the first of its kind. The Ninja Crispy Portable Cooking System. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand. So you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
It is an all-in-one system. It includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware and glass containers and 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-size air fryer in the palm of your hands. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max crisp, bake, air fry, and re-crisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the show description. And stay tuned for your chance to win a free Ninja Crispy. You ready for this hot take today?
Producer Vic, hot take. I haven't felt one of these in a little while. Hit me.
If you haven't been watching the Memorial Cup, there's a certain Leafs prospect who's been pretty good so far this year for the London Knights that's extended here to the Memorial Cup. So here's the hot take from producer Vic. Easton Cowan will finish top 3 in Calder voting in 2026, Rosie.
Top 3, Caldy. I got to admit, I don't know the depth of that draft class potentially coming into the league and who would be his combatants for that trophy. And when you look back, for people who aren't really in the market of the Leafs and they think of Easton Cowan, isn't that guy that like was a big part of completely botching the World Juniors this year? And that would be true. He was not good in that whatsoever. But if you actually were looking at and paying attention, I think Easton Cowan has some dog in him that this team desperately needs. He's got some Matthew Knies in him. He's got some piss and vinegar and some grit and some fire. I think that just through complete lack of experience, basically, and just being the age he is, I think he tried to channel that in a not a very beneficial way in the World Junior tournament. But the fact that he was taking big, bad penalties and kind of doing dumb stuff. And I think you learn how to play that role and how to play on the edge. And the fact that he's got that dog in him, I really like. I think that he could prosper and he'd be a breath of fresh air in Toronto as far as a guy playing with that sand and that salt. So I'm going to go ahead and admit to Vic that I like his hot take, and I think that that's very possible, and he could do that depending on what happens around him with some of his peers. But he's a guy that could make some noise.
I'll be different, and I won't say yes. I was going to say yes, but I'll say no because I'm not sold Easton Cowan makes the Maple Leafs at a training camp. I think you have to be very careful. I think it's a very delicate situation. He's been through some, high moments in his career, but also some really, really tough moments, as you referenced. And so while I want to see Easton Cowan play in the NHL, I want to make sure he's ready to play in the NHL. And I think to a degree, I felt the Leafs did a good job with Fraser Minton, right? They didn't rush him along, then ultimately use him as a key piece to get an important piece to the puzzle in Brandon Carlos. So I'm just not sold right now having this conversation. I know Cowan's having a great year, but we've realized time and time again, junior hockey is not the NHL. So I'm not sold he's got a full season under his belt in the NHL, but there's going to be opportunity for him, rest assured.
Yeah, for sure. And it just depends what he does with it. They are absolutely going, again, different in Toronto than in Dallas or Florida, right? You bring a guy in, he just hides under the radar and gets a bunch of experience. And eventually, oh, yeah, look at him. He's doing well. Where with Easton Cowan, the second his skates touch the ice, it's what is he like? What is he going to be? Is he a bust? Is he a messiah? It's just, it never ends. And that's another bloody people are like, no different playing hockey in Toronto. Well, fuck, go look at a guy trying to crack the NHL. It's different. And they know that. They're smart about it. As you mentioned, Fraser Minton, they did the same thing. They'll be patient with the guy. The last thing they want to do is put him in a situation where he's maybe not ready to handle, takes all the criticism, loses confidence, and you lose 2 years of this guy's potential due to him just fighting mental problems in the market. So he's got potential out the ass. Again, if we say, yeah, he can do that, then all of a sudden, oh, you think every prospect of the Leafs is a messiah. If you say, no, I don't think he can, oh, you're the reason it's so hard it's you can't win. Kid's got potential for sure. He could very easily be top 3 in Calder voting. But like you said, there's a lot of steps along the way before that ever happens.
Tell you what, if there's a PR role with the Leafs this summer, you might have to apply and you'll be the number one focus for that job because it's been protection mode for you today. And all I said last week about the alumni jacket and them flushing it down the tank, I think you got to recover that jacket and send it Rosie's way after today's show.
I should reach out to those guys. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it?
Oh, no, don't tell us. We want a day-by-day breakdown, maybe a week-by-week track of this, but by all accounts, it sounds like it's coming your way, man. So
I think the alumni club is pretty top shelf, I imagine. I'm not even going to reach out. I just I'm going to see if they reach out and send her off. But
what's the cutoff point? Like if you get to July 12th or 13th and you haven't heard anything about this,
I'm going to reach. I'll reach out before that.
Yeah.
They'd mentioned, you can pick it up, and I'm like, well, I don't really live in Toronto.
You want me to go get it or what?
Ship that baby off. Yeah, maybe you got to go bang on the door. I think there's a package for my co-host.
Man, this is an evolving story here on Leafs Morning Take. And the one thing I was going to ask you, are you going to wear this jacket on the show like routinely once a week?
I wonder if I got to wear it every. That'll just be my new garb. Is that jacket? Will sit on this chair, and I'll only wear it when I'm on air.
Oh man, we're gonna track this for everybody as the weeks go by, because I know it's a difficult time of year too. Like I'm sure a lot of the Alumni Association headed to the cottage or vacation. I just hope they've transmitted this order, and
hope they take care of business first before it's time to relax, boys. You got some stuff to do.
Very well said. I like that campaign, Rosie. Want to get in the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you from game props, player props, totals on the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, and Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca. So we got game 4 tonight. The Oilers and the Dallas Stars. Edmonton up 2-0 or up 2-1, in the series. Any bets you like tonight?
I'm hitting the Edmonton Oil Kings, man. They have absolutely dominated the Dallas Stars. And I know they lost game 1, but they absolutely dominated them in game 1.
Should be 3-0 in that series, man.
100%. It would be, but it's not. And I think they're just way better than Dallas. They're clicking on all cylinders. Skinner is, I guess, finding it now. That guy is such an anomaly.
Wild, dude.
But man, they're manhandling that team. And what have they played? 9 periods they've played, and they haven't just like, I think it goes to the Oilers. They have dominated for 8 of those 9 periods. I'm smashing the Oilers tonight, and I think that they're heads and shoulders a better team, and they're hitting their stride at the right time. And I think we are destined for another rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final.
I concur. If I were to play a side tonight, it would be Edmonton. Having said that, I'm just going to play an anytime goal, Mikko Rantanen.
He's been cooled off, eh? Imagine he comes here and just cools right off.
Yeah, it would be a bigger story than it is in Dallas, Rosie.
Sure
I'll tell you that. Do you think they're starting their morning shows at 6? Yeah, Mikko Rantanen hasn't scored in 4 games.
I don't think they have morning shows.
Hockey morning shows
in Dallas.
Unlikely.
Not like we do here.
No,
minus 1.5. Minus 1.5 for the Oil Kings to win by 2. Is plus 155. That's your money right there, ladies and gentlemen.
I like it, man. I've been saying for a long time, I think Edmonton's winning the cup this year. I still feel that way. I know Florida's been incredible. I just think it's McDavid's time. Watching that game the other night, I'm like, this guy's not going to be stopped this year. It reminds me a lot of, 08-09, Pittsburgh and Detroit. Crosby loses year 1. They play again in the year 2, and then they win. It's time. Like this is a generational, maybe the best player ever to play the game. Like he is going to find a way to win a cup at some point in time. I think this is the year, Rosie.
If he does, he would have to do something special and pop off, which he is 100% capable of doing. And it would be this historic highlight reel type of thing, which all the greats kind of have in their runs up to their Stanley Cup. One thing I could see, I know I've said everything about the Florida Panthers. I think they're basically unstoppable, but the fact that this is their 3rd final in a row, I mean, that takes its toll. You don't get much recovery. Your training isn't the same in the summer. It's just, they call it the Stanley Cup hangover after you do that one single time. This is their 3rd time doing it. I think if the Oilers win, it will be large part because they kind of hit a wall in the final, and Bobber's on himself, and their dogs aren't really there, and they just don't have the energy to play that hard-nosed style that they've played for the last 3-4 years. That is possible, but I'm still certainly not betting against the Florida Panthers.
Injuries will play a factor. Matthias Ekholm is inching closer to return. That's massive for everybody, including Evan Bouchard, who he plays with. I think it's going to be Stetcher.
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's a good problem to have when you got a healthy superstar coming back, but everyone's playing so well you don't even know who to take out. There's worse things to go through as a coach.
Well, dude, that's been the big story for me is the goaltending, but also like the blue line of it. Like John Klingberg's having himself a pretty decent postseason too. Everybody's pulling their weight, man. Everybody's pulling their weight. You need that this time of year. Like we joke about it, but like Simone Benoit in round 1, same type of idea, playing above what his expectation is. Right?
I know that's what everyone that wins a cup has these guys who are usually depth pieces, whether it's, some bottom 6 guys or some back pairing defensemen that stand up like crazy. And you say, holy, do you realize what that guy did? He way outperformed his contract. Hence why it's impossible to do what Florida has done and be good consistently for year in and year out. Because usually when you do that once, buddy who's, making 900,000 needs to get a bump up to 1.9 million or 2.3 million or whatever the case is. And you can't keep everyone together. And somehow they have done that. But like you say, you don't get that far without everyone pulling their weight.
All right, Rosie, excellent job today. You're back on Friday. You're taking the next couple of shows off. And I did mention to you off air that we have a special co-host coming up for tomorrow's podcast. None other than Adam Copeland.
No!
WWE Hall of Famer of AEW, big-time Leafs fan. He was mic'd up for Game 7 against the Florida Panthers. He has agreed to co-host Leafs Morning Take tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that.
I bet you are, you little fanboy WWE master. That's pretty
awesome,
man.
On top of that, big wrestling fan Bruce Boudreau is going to drop by the show tomorrow. So we're bringing the heavies tomorrow.
Poor Adam, you guys are going to be fanning out on the show and forget that you got a job to do.
Exactly. Like
10-year-old
me, if you were to tell 10-year-old me that I get to co-host a show with
Seriously.
Edge,
Whoever thought? That's pretty wicked, man. I'll look forward to that. And people watching, if you like that kind of stuff, subscribe, tell your friends, share it around. We're doing stuff.
My bad. I didn't even tell producer Vic this was happening. My bad.
Poor Vicky.
I like the element of surprise, man. The element of surprise is good. It's good.
What does he got to do any different than when I'm here? I'm just so easy to work with that it's going to be devastating to lose me for a day.
Yeah, well, you're gone for 2 days. Dave Pagnotta's in on Thursday. So that'll do it. Excellent job, Rosie. We'll talk later on in the week, okay? Today's a month away from the NHL draft where the Leafs have no picks. So
Exciting stuff. Hey, maybe you'll find a diamond in the rough 7th rounder, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be on location in LA this year, actually. I'm heading down to LA June 25th.
Why am I not?
I'm not going for work. I'm just going down. I'm getting a media pass. I'm going to the draft.
Oh, look at you.
Hitting West Hollywood after. Love that.
All right. Well, take some pictures. Share around.
Sounds good. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Again, thank you to everybody in the chat. Listen to Rosie. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button at the Leafs Nation 401. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. And thank you to producer Vic. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.